Other interesting political news, you have JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon critiquing Biden's attack on natural gas, which, again, is saying something. This is one of the most powerful, influential CEOs on the planet. He's been successfully leading JP Morgan Chase for decades. Every financial institution basically looks at him in admiration. And because, again, from a business perspective, they have been incredibly successful with their whole institution. While banks are going bankrupt, which, again, that sounds grammatically awkward, banks going bankrupt, but nevertheless, they've stood pretty strong. And in fact, they've actually bought out many of the competition that have gone down, like Silicon Valley Bank, as well as the other one that wasn't as popular that I can't remember off the top of my head. Now, this comes to us thanks to the dailycaller.com, and they say, quote, enormously naive, JP Morgan CEO slams Biden's natural gas pause, issuing warning about the economy. Now, Dimon emphasized the usefulness of liquid natural gas as a form of affordable energy for the U.S. and its allies, while the project pause increases the dependency on oil and coal and harming economic and geopolitical advantages, according to the statement. Which, again, yes, one of the key things you need for a country to foster, you need cheap energy. Because again, when you look at how most countries, how most civilizations evolve, traditionally they start off with manufacturing, then they keep going from there, go into the service industry and technology. That's been the progression we've seen across the globe for several years. Now, Dimon also said, quote, trade is realpolitik, and the real cancellation of future liquid natural gas projects is a good example of this fact. The projects were delayed mainly for political reasons to pacify those who believe that gas is bad and that oil and gas projects should simply be stopped. This is not only wrong, but also environmentally naive. One of the only ways to reduce CO2 for the next few decades is to use gas to replace coal. When oil and gas prices skyrocketed last winter, nations around the world, wealthy and very climate conscientious nations like France, Germany, and the Netherlands, as well as lower income nations like Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam that cannot afford the higher costs, started to turn back to their coal plants, unquote. Which is hilariously ironic for the Europe to be so dependent on Russia, oil, and gas. And then Trump told them, hey, you probably shouldn't do this. I mean, historically speaking, maybe you should be more self-sufficient. And their own country is actually shutting down all their own energy producing capabilities. Yeah, and then that happened, and now they're starting to turn to coal. And China's building multiple coal plants as we speak. Dimon also said, it's important to note that the economy is based on being fueled by large amounts of government deficit spending and past stimulus. There's also a growing need for increased spending as we continue transitioning to a greener economy, restructuring global supply chains, boosting military expenditures, and battling high rising healthcare costs. This may lead to sticker inflation and higher rates in the marketplace. And in terms of the prices, and this is again from dailycaller.com, they note that prices has risen 18.5% since Biden took office in January 2021, most recently rising 3.2% year to date, by higher than the Fed's targeted 2%. In response, the federal fund rate have been placed in range of 5.2% to 5.25%, the highest level in 23 years. So going down to more and more statistics. Let's see here. You also note how you've had an increase in natural gas prices. And again, it's one of the reasons you've seen so much consolidation in the oil industries. I mean, last year you had Denbury Resources, headquartered out of Plano, Texas. They were acquired, as well as another famous one, Pioneer Natural Resources, that was based out of Irving, Texas. They're both acquired by Chevron and ExxonMobil. And it's one of those things where if you're not allowed to have new sites, well, you have to acquire companies that have those. And putting a pause on all these and having some of these institutions they actually won't lend you money for certain projects if you're, say, an oil exploration company. And just doing one geosurvey and just starting a new oil well is a huge upfront investment, and there's a little bit of gambling to it. Granted, you could argue it's an educated gamble because you can do a lot of surveying and geology? Yeah, I got there eventually. You do a lot of analysis in that regard, but it's still a huge upfront gamble investment, and if the banks won't lend you money, or many of them won't lend you money, and the industry is being more and more regulated, and you're being pressured to decrease how much you produce, how many of those new wells are going to actually how many of them are going to be drilled? How many of them are really going to be started? So there are many reasons why this is detrimental. And again, solar doesn't work everywhere. I always like to tell people, I mean, there's certain use cases where, yes, things make sense. There's a use case for darn near everything. But I think this will be a big political point for 2024, the election. Because something that everyone can very easily relate to is how much do you pay at the pump? Which, granted, there's a huge ripple effect when you kneecap the fossil fuel industry. And one of the biggest is grocery prices. Well, how do our groceries get to the stores? Overwhelmingly, they get there from trucks, trains, things that require fossil fuels. And that's one of the variables that increases the cost of goods sold at the grocery stores. Transportation costs increase. And again, something that's very easily relatable, how much does it cost you to fill up your tank? Is it, remember when it was $1.35 a gallon? Remember it was under $2 per gallon for natural or regular unleaded gas? And now it's $3, $4, $5. In California, it's over $5 per gallon. That's also because California has higher stringent standards, so they have a dual monopoly or a duopoly, where there's only, I believe there's 2 or 3 refineries in California that can refine the gas to their specifications, in addition to having one of the highest taxes. Fun business fact, one of the highest states, or the highest state with actual gas tax is Pennsylvania, but because of the high processing costs in California, the highest cost per gallon overall is in California. And I don't suspect that'll change anytime soon, but that's something that's very easy to relate to in terms of you see that at the pump and you're just disgusted. You just think, remember when gas was cheap? Remember when the oil was, remember when the U.S. was the first, they were energy independent for the first time in like 50 plus years? That was in, what was that, 2019? We actually were producing so much, we're actually exporting. How times have certainly changed. So I think, again, I think Jamie Dimon chiming in is helping because, again, he's more left-leaning, and many people see him, again, Chase is by no means perfect. I mean, they do discriminate based on certain industries that you work in. I mean, there's certain friends I know where they've started firearm-related industry or businesses, like an ammo sale company, where after a certain threshold, you're just told by JP Morgan, we no longer wish to do business with you. So by no means are they perfect, and by no means are they, absolute 100% we love freedom type of company. But I do think Jamie is bringing apart a good point. We need cheap fuel, and you can't just turn a switch to transition the U.S. to green energy overnight. Well, I would also argue when many of the green tech isn't really green. Well, it's green dollars for those companies, but it's not physically green yet. That's why windmills are crap with a 25-year ROI to break even, or actually 25 years of usage just to break even. Then you have to dispose of the blades, which are not good for the environment because of the materials they're made out of. Again, a wise man once said there are no such thing as solutions, only trade-offs, which, again, in terms of other alternative energies, I think nuclear, of all the tech we have right now, I think nuclear is still the cleanest, most efficient form of energy. Now, that being said, there's so much red tape, it's very hard to actually build a new plant. And you could actually argue it's 100% recyclable and renewable because you can actually use the depleted uranium as tank busters for the military industry, since it is one of the most dense materials out there. But I partially digress. I do think this will be a big political issue because it's something that every American can relate to in terms of the price of fuel, price of natural gas for your home, and a lot of the oil byproducts that go into darn near everything we consume. So let me know, do you think, they talk about all the time in politics is, the price per gallon at the pump. Do you think this will be a big political issue going into the election year? Or do you think no one will care? People just kind of become conditioned to pay $3 to $5 per gallon and they just kind of absorb it into their budget and they no longer think about it? Let me know. As always, it'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in. Again, we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you could click that button, I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment is a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.